archaeologists find evidence for a 40,000-year-old modern culture in China. That's a long time ago. Now, no actual sapien bones were found at Ziyama Bay, but archaeologists did find a pigment processing industry and miniaturized stone tools far in advance of their broad adaptation in prehistoric China. And this has, well, huge implications on archaeology. Huge. Now, archaic humans began reaching Eurasia about 2 million years ago, but the timeline of anatomically modern types spreading out of Africa is really not known. In any case, by 40,000 years ago, modern humans had reached northern Asia, replacing the archaic populations. Now, some modern remains from that time have been found, albeit few. But what their cultural adaptations were like has been a mystery. Now, an international team of archaeologists and a report in the Journal of Nature coming out this month have something to say. Now, the report in Nature on indirect but compelling evidence for Homo sapiens' presence in Ziyama Bay, a site in northern China, which you're looking at now. It's on the Huliu River that dates to at least 40,000 years ago. Moreover, it seems that this group of hominins developed a unique stone technology culture that would only emerge broadly almost 10,000 years later than these finds. Now, the evidence found at Ziyama Bay includes the earliest discovery of ochre processing in the region, as distinct from ochre use, which has been found even among the Neanderthals. Another aspect is finely wrought stone bladelets of a type not found in China before, some of which bear traces of hafting. 40,000-year-old hafting. Now, Fagang Wang of China's Hebei Province Institute of Cultural Relics and Archaeology and Professor Michael Petraglia of Germany's Max Planck Institute of the Sciences of Human History and colleagues say supporting evidence is the separate discovery of modern human remains dating about 40,000 years ago at nearby Tiawan Cave in Sokoidian Cave. Also, modern skull caps were unearthed in Skalskiat and dated to about 34,000 years ago. Now, these discoveries support the theory that Ziyama Bay manufacturers were sapiens. Now, theoretically, since no bones have been found in the context of the Ziyama Bay, finds could be associated with other hominins, such as Denisovians or even Neanderthals. But given the unique qualities of the finds in the context of China, and the fact that modern human remains from the same period are discovered in the area, the most parsimonious explanation is that the Ziyama Bay occupants were Homo sapiens. And also, most Neanderthals had gone extinct by 40,000 years ago, in my opinion. As soon as Petraglia saw the archaeological collections, he knew immediately that it was a significant site. He didn't participate in the excavation, which was in 2013, but is part of the international team analyzing the artifacts currently. Homo sapiens, it seemed, have been roaming beyond Africa shortly after the evolution began, probably 300,000 years ago. And recent discoveries in Israel and Greece indicate that by 200,000 years, early modern humans were out of Africa and about. Now, genetic analysis show these early modern humans evidently met and made merry with other human species beyond Africa. But the early modern Exeters went extinct, and the Neanderthals and Denisovians, and heaven knows who else, continued to rule the Eurasian roost until some point in time. Now, the exit that seceded, in the sense that sapiens broke through Eurasia and survived, was only about 50,000 years ago, give or take a few thousand. Some surmise that the sapiens had evolved to another level, which gave it a crucial advantage compared with its equally big-brained cousin species in the current paper. The team points out to 3 lines of evidence indicating innovations that may have helped sapiens expand and suggest these are spore of modern sapiens in Ziyama Bay, 40,000 years ago. The microblades and their hafting, at least in some cases, the ochre processing, and the finely fashioned tools made of bone are mind-blowing. Now here you can see some of the micro hafting on these blades. This is only a 12 millimeter specimen, and someone had to put these flakes in place. And this might be some of the early examples of hafting ever known. And to add insult to injury, there's actual bone here stuck to some of the flint micro-hafted flakes, which means that the original tool where the flake was glued into is being shown here in the picture, which would be some of the earliest multifaceted cutting tools ever to exist. This is the first pocket knife on Earth, 40,000 years old. Absolutely mind-blowing. Here again is a large blow-up of a flint tool with the bone implement attached to it in situ. They have not been unglued. Absolutely fantastic. Now, the stone tool assemblage at the site is generally small. The team found 382 microblades made of local chert and quartz. Almost all the tools measured less than 4 centimeters, or 1.5 inches. Over half were smaller than 2 centimeters. In Petraglia's view, the inhabitants were intending to create exactly that, small, blade-like pieces. But why? Now, 7 of the blades showed signs of hafting, probably into wood handles or possibly bone. It's even possible that they were affixed, these wee blades, to a handle to create a sort of prehistoric serrated implement. Now, these people really seem to be tooling up their industries and doing some of the most sophisticated things in order to process meats or plants or kill game much more efficiently, according to the team. And they were way ahead of their time. These types of stone tools in China before Ziyama and even contemporary with it are core and flake, meaning simple amorphous industries where early humans, let's say, cracked a stone again and again and again, and it was until they made the actual flake they wanted that they stopped. They didn't know how to actually tool something into a finer blade, which is what's happening here 40,000 years ago. Now, microlithic technology, tiny stone blades, would only become the predominant technology in Eastern Asia about 11,000 years later, and this is 29,000 years ago. There is no stone tool assemblage like it at any time. Approximately 40,000 years ago, its appearance, therefore, is innovative. We have nothing like this technology beforehand. So this pushes us back 11,000 years to the earliest hafted stone tools on Earth. It's amazing. The hafting evidence is extremely novel, and no earlier assemblage has shown the same, ever. Possibly the manufacture of microliths at Ziyama Bay was a precedent to the broader phenomenon 10,000 years later. meaning that this was the first place it ever occurred. That said, there is no connection between Ziyama Bay to the later microlithic sites in that region 11,000 years later. So it seems that we have a wave of advanced people using a new technology 40,000 years ago, only to disappear and to be replaced by another population using a similar microlithic technology 11,000 years later. That sounds a little weird, doesn't it? What were these fine tools so ahead of their time used for? The use-wear analysis of non-hafted pieces runs the gamut from cutting, boring, and even use as wedges. Use-wear analysis of the hafted pieces indicates several purposes, including to scrape hides, to scrape and bore into hard matter, probably wood, to whittle wood perhaps, and likely use in the course of processing or consuming animals. Which animals, do you ask? Well, there were some big ones roaming around at this time, but pollen analysis indicates, we have that there. We have some analysis there. But pollen analysis indicates that Ziyama Bay was a piney steppe at that time. Now, that environment characterization fits with the evidence for the occupants' meals. They ate copiously of the deer. The Ziyama Bay people also doted on roast horse and zokor, that being a relatively large subterranean rodent, someone like the friend of the mole or rat. Zokors were probably easy to hunt because they were, well, rats. Oh, and there we have a nice little picture of a zokor. Cute little bugger. Now, the degree to which animal bones were burned at the site suggests the occupants may have been burning bones for fuel. Apropos of the bones, the archaeologists also found a bone tool, and we showed you this earlier. Just one, but believe it shows evidence of advanced technique. And what I mean by that is that there is a chert lithic that is hafted, that is glued to a bone, suggesting that this is one of the first knives archaeologically ever discovered in the world. A 40,000-year-old pocket knife. How you like them apples? Now, also, ochre residue was found on 10 of the tools. In 2 cases, the ochre was on the tool's active edge, suggesting ochre in the glue, or its use in hide processing. But the intriguing aspect isn't the use made of ochre, it's in the processing of it. I mean, it was massive. Ochre use has been the hallmark of the Homo line predating our species. We know that the red ochre people had been moving around the world 10,000 years ago. They're world travelers, but this is 40,000 years ago, and we have, here's ochre on the ground and the stone used to crush it. We have ochre processing 40,000 years ago from a Homo species. Now, ochre use has been a hallmark of the Homo line predating our species. It seems especially red ochre, which we have here. The friable, colorful stone may have been used by Homo erectus in Kenya 285,000 years ago. There is somewhat more confident identification of its use at an early Neanderthal site in the Neanderthals 250,000 to 200,000 years ago. But a prehistoric ochre processing facility is a completely other level and has never been discovered until this find. The archaeologists believe that at Ziyama Bay, the occupants were hauling various kinds of ochre to the cave, grinding and pounding them to produce paints. And what they did with those paints is anyone's guess, but we all know that 40,000 years ago, there were a lot of red images painted on caves. The amount they produced was enough to impregnate the floor where they worked, the team writes. The archaeologists identified one piece of iron-rich ochre that had been repeatedly abraded to produce a dark red ochre powder. One small piece of a different kind of ochre, seemingly generated by the crushing of a big piece and an elongated limestone slab stained with ochre. A workshop for the production and use of mineral pigments at Ziyama Bay constitutes a second new cultural element in comparison with earlier and contemporary sites, says the team. Now, this is one of the earliest manufacturing sites on Earth, 40,000 years ago, where they're making red ochre paint, pigment, and other products, including microlithics and pocket knives. It's absolutely insane. Now, the preservation of the floor where the ochre facility was found is literally unprecedented. It's Pompeii-like, if you will. So we can say a lot about hominin activities just looking at this one layer right here. We actually saw an activity area of ochre processing, which is unprecedented for China. Now, while the habitation floor was infused with different shades of ochre, red predominated. This is in keeping with the precedent from other areas, times, and sites. Hunter-gatherers the worldwide used red ochre to daub their cells, their garb, and their adornments. So the bottom line is that others used ochre and small tools. But the pigment processing industry and the small tools of this sort were the first of their kind in the region. And the team repeats that the identification of the species at large at Ziyama Bay is inferred. Tianyuan Cave is 150 kilometers away and housed Homo sapiens, showing genetic evidence of crossbreeding with Neanderthals. Did the people who live at Ziyama Bay 40,000 years ago survive? Which means, do they have descendants? Or is this just another lineage of hominins that went extinct during a magnetic excursion? We don't know. But separate work showed that the lineage of their neighbors at Tianyuan 40,000 years ago may have survived in some Asian and Native American populations, chiefly in South America. How much light does this shed on modern human development? Well, the archaeological record argues against the notion of linear, continuous cultural innovation, or of a fully formed set of adaptations that enabled early humans to expand out of Africa and conquer the world. But it does fit with a pattern of mosaic innovations. It is still an open book because there is much yet to learn, and the breakthroughs are coming daily. The landscape is complicated. The evidence does not fit a simple picture of gradual but inexorable sapiens spreading over Asia. You have to imagine these are small groups of Homo sapiens, hunter-gatherers wandering across Asia, which is a gigantic landscape. And some may have advanced, but some may have failed. And some may have risen genetically because of the magnetic excursion. It's anyone's guess if this map we're looking at is even 5 or 10% correct, but it's the best we can do. And unfortunately, all of the North and South American data is bullshit. As early as the 1900s, the Smithsonian knew the Salutrians were in America as early as 16,900 years ago. Dennis Stanford can confirm this. Why don't we have an updated map when for decades we know that there has been populations in America for 20,000 years, as well as South America? It's because of disinformation. They don't want you to know, but we do. Hope you got something out of the video. Just another tidbit in the science that they won't tell you. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Share this with like-minded people and be safe. We love you. That's a bell. Knowledge. Whew. That was a big one. Be safe.